Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm going to be showing you how to kill Arch-Glacor in hard mode. Just a quick heads up before we get into the video, anything like equipment loadout or inventory setup is purely recommendations, so you do have something that is slightly different, that is totally fine. It's just what I've been using when I go to kill Arch-Glacor myself. So yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get into it. In hard mode, the Arch-Glacor becomes much stronger. All of its special attacks are further enhanced in hard mode compared to normal mode. So if you have fought Glacier in normal mode, you will notice a significant difference, especially as the enrage gets higher. The Arch-Glacor's life points scale with enrage. It starts off with 370,000 health and it gains 3,700 additional health for every 5% of enrage accumulated. So after you've killed the Arch-Glacor, you will have like a spin at the board which will determine what the next enrage number is. I think it's between 5 and 25, I'm not too sure, and then you'll go into the next fight with that added on to whatever the last enrage was. The Arch-Glacor's life points do not have a cap, so when you reach 4,000 enrage, it will have a total of 3.33 million life points. Compared to normal mode, the damage dealt from most mechanics is also increased, so just bear that in mind when you start hard mode. Unlike normal mode, where you are safe if you die, in hard mode you're not, so if you do die you're going to have to go to Death's office to retrieve your stuff. You just got to be a little bit more cautious, especially if you play as Iron Man or Hardcore Iron Man. Lastly, Arch-Glacor has 5 mechanics, not including the normal creeping ice attack, and the Glacier can use the same mechanic twice in a row, so just keep an eye out for that. So to begin with, I'm going to talk to you about some recommendations before we get into the fight. So if you're going to do hard mode, I do recommend a 99 plus combat, 85 plus defense and 95 plus prayer, 96 plus herbal, 90 plus weapons and 80 plus armor. The Glacier does use magic attacks, so I do recommend magic protection and also soul split. You can use this in between attacks when Glacier isn't using magic. Extreme potions, or if your herbal level is high enough, then I recommend overloads. A damage boosting familiar and some scrolls, such as a war tortoise or a Calgarian demon, Ripper demon, something like that. A poisonable boosting item, so something like Cinderbane gloves. Also, an enriched overcharged Pontifex Shadow Ring will increase your drop rates of unique items from this boss by 2%, so it's really useful as well. Completing the quest City of Senestein means you can make yourself a Pontifex Shadow Ring, then completing the quest Extinction means you can turn that ring into an enriched Pontifex Shadow Ring. I really recommend you take a Vampyrism aura with you. You will be able to get 5% health back with every hit, and this can be really useful when you're starting out with new bosses. It means you can make a few more mistakes and not worry about it. Also, it's really useful if you can't use soul split for the whole duration of the boss fight, and you can get some health back using the aura instead. Augmenting your equipment can be really useful as well, because it will be able to hold a number of perks which can help you with the fight. A shield or defender is really useful if you're going to be using the barricade ability, and adrenaline potions if you just can't get your adrenaline high enough with some mechanics. Now moving on to the different attacks Arch-Glacor does. Now Glacier does 5 mechanics, not including the auto attack, and I will talk you through them individually one by one. So one of Glacier's attacks is just an auto attack. The Glacier swings either of his arms up and launches a magical attack at the player. This can't be turned off, and this will be used when none of the mechanics are being performed. So one of Glacier's mechanics is called Glaciite Minions. The Glacier summons 2 magic and 2 melee Glaciites that provide it with a magic damage reduction buff until they're killed. Whenever the Arch-Glacor summons Glaciites, stop attacking it and attack on the Glaciites using AoE abilities. So if you're using Mage, you can use Ancient Magics, Chain, Greater 1, Dragon Breath or Detonate. If you're using range, you can use Mechanized Chins, Ricochet, Greater as well, or Bombardment. If you're using melee, you can use Hurricane, Quake, Cleave, Flurry, Greater again, or Bladed Dive. And what this will basically do is just speed up the Glaciite kills, which means you can just focus back onto the Glacier itself. And also you want to do this as quickly as possible, because Glacier will go into its next mechanic even if you haven't killed all of the Glaciites before then. When the glacier reaches a 250 enrage and higher, a blustered glaciate will appear among them if the boss has been damaged. So you don't have to worry about this glaciate before 250 enrage, but after, every time it summons 4 glaciates, a 5th one will appear with more health, and you just want to deal with it the same as you are dealing with the other 4. When you've killed a glaciate, it will drop a glaciate core, which can be pressed to deal damage to the glacier itself. But if you do this before all of them are killed, you will only do around 50 damage each core. So you want to wait until they're all killed, and then you will do around 2,500 damage each. Otherwise you'll lose around 10,000 free damage to the boss. So another mechanic the glacier may perform is called Flurry. For roughly 15 seconds, the Arch-Glacor will begin attacking with magic, range and melee attacks. Since this attack lasts a long time, this is a perfect opportunity to use Sunshine if you're using Mage, or Death Swiftness if you're using range. At higher enrage, it is important to prayer flick all attacks in Flurry, as they will deal extremely high damage. So unlike normal mode, where if Glacier performs the Flurry attack, it won't deal a lot of damage to you, in hard mode, if you do miss a prayer flick, then it will deal significant damage. So I'll just get into the habit of prayer flicking to stop this from happening, even at lower enrage levels. Using Soul Split in between prayer flicking attacks is a beneficial way of restoring health back. Now, depending on your damage output and your armor, you may not have to do this at 0 to maybe 250. It really depends on how much health you can get back. Also, using the Vampyrism aura is really useful because you will get health back from that anyway. But I would get into the habit of doing this technique. So when you do fight Glacier later on, it will be more beneficial to you. Lastly, using a ultimate ability halfway and above through this mechanic isn't advised due to the time you'll be having with the mechanic and possible low adrenaline outcome that may be needed for the next mechanic. So basically at the start you can use a ultimate because it will last the duration of the mechanic, but if you do go to use it maybe midway to 3/4 of the way through, you may not have enough adrenaline for the next mechanic, which could potentially kill you. So just keep an eye out for that. So the next mechanic the Glacier may perform is called the Pillars of Ice. So the Glacier will perform Creeping Ice. It will start from the east. When it covers around 75% of the bridge, the boss will conjure a moving beam of light known as Sheer Cold. A second and third beam will spawn just as the Creeping Ice shatters, always to the west, and these beams follow you around, and getting hit by it deals moderate damage and drains your prayer by 8% of the maximum amount per hit and 1% adrenaline too. All of the beams disappear after around 20 seconds, and the damage is considered hard typeless. It means defensive abilities aside from Barricade will prevent the damage. So when I go to kill the Glacier and this mechanic happens, I use Surge, and it's just all about timing, and it's a key component in avoiding these beams. If you take a shield with you, you can use the Barricade ability, which will just prevent the damage from the Pillars of Ice, but it won't prevent the prayer loss and the adrenaline, so just bear that in mind. The second to last mechanic the Glacier may perform is called Exposed Core. So the Glacier will perform Creeping Ice from both sides. It will collapse onto the bridge and the icicle will pop out. Its arms are closed to player in a small region. Players will have a chill debuff that increases with every hit from the core, and while the core deals very little damage at first, if the player is stuck inside for too long, it will begin to increase its damage and kill the player in just a few ticks. The damage dealt is magic. So to deal with this mechanic, the player must break one of two arms to force the boss to reabsorb its core and end the mechanic. The right arm is weak to crush attacks and the left arm is weak to fire spells. The Glacier does not attack, but it's immune to attacks until the player breaks free. So if you try to deal damage to the Glacier, it will just say immune until one of the arms is destroyed and the core is reabsorbed back into the Glacier itself, then you can just carry on with the fight like normal. A good way of dealing with this mechanic is by just using thresholds. This will just speed up the mechanic itself, destroy one of the arms quicker, and prevent yourself from receiving higher damage the longer you are inside from the core. The last mechanic the Glacier may perform is called Frost Cannon. So the Glacier will perform Creeping Ice, starting from the east, west or both sides at once. If the ice starts from the west side, there will always be a Frost Cannon attack. If it starts on both sides and meets in the middle, it will either be a Frost Cannon or an Exposed Core. If it's the Frost Cannon, there will be a slight delay before it activates. Upon enclosing a specific area, the Arch-Glacor will transform into a cannon and charge up a powerful blast of energy at the location. The blast deals 3 hits of massive magic damage. Now, depending on your rage level, it will vary between 7,000 and 21,000 damage, which can instantly kill the player, and after the attack has been dealt, the player will be stunned. Now, this attack seems very intimidating only because it can instantly kill you, but it's very easy to counter, and all you have to do is deflect magic, make sure that is on, and then use devotion and then freedom to stop yourself from being stunned. Now, you always want a backup just in case the Glacier uses the Frost Cannon twice in a row, so you just want to prioritize deflect magic, devotion, then freedom, and if that's not an option, you want to deflect magic like normal, use a power bust of vitality to double your life points, make sure your health is high, then use freedom to get out of the stun. Now, there is probably a list of different techniques you can use to prevent the Frost Cannon attack, but these two in my opinion are just like the best ones, but you can use whatever you like when you go to deal with the mechanic yourself. Okay, so now moving on to equipment loadout, I'm going to work my way from mid tier and then go up to high tier. So starting from the mid tier melee gear, I recommend top left, the Obsidian Cape, Amulet Fury, an Asylum Surgeon Ring, a Quiver, any tier is fine, a Masuda's Spear or any melee weapon, an Ancient Book. Then for your armor, I've gone with Bandos, so the helmet, chestplate, gloves, tassets and boots. For the range gear, I recommend exactly the same, but I would swap out my weapon for a dark bow and your armor, so I've gone with Armadillo, so the helmet, chestplate, gloves, chain skirt and boots. And your mage gear, I recommend swapping out your quiver for a rune pouch, any tier is fine, your weapon for a staff of light, and I've gone for subjugation, so I've gone with the hood, garb, gloves, gown and boots. So now moving on to the high tier melee gear, starting top left, I recommend a Kiln Cape, so the melee version, an Essence of Finality, a Reaver's Ring, a Planet's Quiver, your weapon a Nox Sith and a Scripture of Wen. Then for your armor, I've gone with trimmed masterwork, so the helmet, plate body, plate legs and boots, but swap out your gloves for Cinderbane. For your range gear, I recommend the Kiln Cape, but the range version, an Essence of Finality, Reaver's Ring, Planet's Quiver, and for your weapons, I recommend Ascension, so the crossbow and the offhand, a Scripture of Wen. Then for your armor, I recommend Serenic, so the mask, halberd and chaps, but swap out your boots for Flare Frost and your gloves for Cinderbane. And lastly, for your mage gear, I recommend the Kiln Cape, but the mage version, an Essence of Finality, Reaver's Ring and a rune pouch, I've gone with Grasping, your weapon a Staff of Seliski and a Scripture of Wen. Then for your armor, I recommend Tectonic, so the mask, robe tops and robe legs, but swap out your boots for Hellfire and your gloves for Cinderbane. Okay, so now moving on to your inventory, again I'm going to work my way from mid tier and then go up to high tier. So starting from mid tier, I recommend Overload Flasks or Extreme Potions, Super Pro Renewal Potions and Super Restore Flasks. Bring some food along, so I've gone with Shark, a Power Bust of Vitality, an Adrenaline Flask, War Tortoise Pouch and Scrolls, an Ancient Elven Ritual Shard, an Enhanced Excalibur, and a Spring Cleaner. And for your high tier, I recommend some Supreme Overload Flasks, Super Pro Renewal Potions and Super Restore Flasks. Again, bring some food along, Power Bust of Vitality, an Adrenaline Flask. For your familiar, I've gone with Ripper Demon, so bring some pouch and scrolls. Weapon Poison +++ is good to go with your Cinderbane gloves, an Ancient Elven Ritual Shard, an Enhanced Excalibur, and again a Spring Cleaner. If you get a little bit more confident with the boss, you can take a little bit less food with you. I do recommend you just go to a bank every time you get a kill, especially at enrages maybe 400+, then you can just stock up on your prayer and your health again at a bank and then just go in for the next kill. Also, you don't need to take a Spring Cleaner, I'll just take it by habit. I don't think you will need it for this fight. Now there's just a couple of more things I want to talk about before we get into the video, and the first thing is the Revolution bar. Now this is the bar I use when I do this boss, and the top bar just consists of the abilities I'll be using depending on my combat style. So I'm going to be using Mage, so the top bar will just be used for Mage abilities. The middle bar consists of deflective curses, so I've gone with Mage, Range and Melee, and then next to that I have the Soul Split, and on the end I have surge, escape and anticipation. And the bottom bar consists of different items and abilities I'll be using to counter the frost cannon. So the first 3 slots consist of deflect mage, then devotion, then freedom. Because Arch-Glacor can perform a mechanic twice in a row, you will need a backup. So when devotion, the F2 slot is on cooldown, you're going to need something else to counter the frost cannon. So the middle part consists of debilitation, which just halves the damage received from the boss, power burst of vitality to double your health, then freedom to escape the stun. Also, the last thing at the end is the essence of finality. If you do have the necklace, this is really useful for the exposed core bit. It can deal with the arms really quickly, so you have less chance of dying from the exposed core itself. Now these are just a different bunch of abilities, thresholds and ultimates you can use depending on your combat style. These are just revolution bar setups. I will leave a link in the description for you so you can have a little bit of a closer look yourself, and then make yourself a bar up just before your first fight with Arch-Glacor. I have taken a screenshot of the arena. There's just a couple of things I want to talk to you about when I fight this boss, and hopefully this will help you when you fight Glacor too. The first thing is the favourite spot. Now this is the spot I spend most of my time when I fight Glacor. It just means most of its mechanics creep and ice from the sides won't be able to touch you in a spot, which means you can just focus on the fight itself without moving around. The black arrow is when the frost cannon is happening and when the creep and ice appears from the right hand side first and then slowly makes its way to the left. The black spot is where you want to be standing when this happens. Now I consider this spot a safe spot from the creep and ice from the sides. It just means it's the closest spot to the favourite spot, which means you can just move a little, then deal with the frost cannon, then move back to the favourite spot and then carry on with the fight like normal. And lastly, this is just a life point chart of the Arch-Glacor. On the left it shows the enrage level. The thresholds are like 0, 100, 250 all the way up to 4000. You only need to worry about the health difference of the arms, Glaciites, minions and the Bloisted when you start fighting Glacor at 3000. So we won't be doing that in this video. And every now and then, as the enrage gets higher, the Arch-Glacor's overall health will get higher. So if you feel like your kills are taking a little bit longer each time, this is probably why. Okay, so now we have that out of the way, I'm going to show you a couple of ways of getting to the boss. Then after, I'm going to show you the boss fight itself. So let's get into that. Okay, so the first way of getting to Glacor, and the longer way, is by grabbing yourself a archaeology journal. You can find this from the dig site itself. Once you have one, you can just teleport yourself to the dig site. Okay, so once you've teleported yourself to the dig site, you just want to make your way north, and then you want to keep going north until you reach a set of doors. Enter the doors and then enter the Senestein city. Okay, so once you've made your way to the city through the doors, you just want to keep going south until you reach the frosty area. So you just want to keep going around this crater through the middle of the city and then go through the barrier, and then you will arrive at the Glacor lobby area. The easiest way of getting to Glacor, in my opinion, is by teleporting yourself to War Retreat. Now you will only be able to use these portals if you've got 1 kill with Glacor, so after you have, you can just make your way down these stairs and then you can reattune one of these 2 portals, and then you will have a list of different bosses, and then you just want to click the boss Wildering. So you want to click on Glacor. There will be a small fee, but once you've paid that you don't need to pay it again. Press yes, you enter the portal and you will end up in the lobby area we just were. Okay, so once you have your equipment loadout and inventory set up, it's time to finally start the boss fight. Now just a quick heads up, the mechanics V-Glacier uses are always in a random order, but I will try my best to explain them to you as he performs them. So activate your book, your aura, your prayers, your potions, your familiar, all of that before you go into the boss fight. I like to use my Excalibur and Elven Ritual Shard as I'm in, but it doesn't really matter too much. So yeah, once you're all sorted out, it's time to start the fight. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make your way into the favourite spot, activate your Ritual Shard and your Excalibur if you haven't already, and click on the boss. Now the first mechanic the Glacier is going to perform is going to be either Pillars of Ice or the Frost Cannon. Now you see the thing in the middle of the arena, if it shoots past you it's going to be Pillars of Ice, if it stops where you are it's going to be the Frost Cannon. Now what you want to do is get ready to click the bottom right of the arena and only move when the creeping ice is one stump away. So when that happens, you want to give the corner a click and then you will make your way to the corner. While this has happened, the first pillar of ice will spawn. You just want to ignore that and only move to the top right once it starts moving. Make your way to the corner of the arena and only move to the left once you've reached the corner itself. Click to the right of the ice on the floor. Once the ice has shattered, you want to click further down the arena, and while this is happening you only want to surge once you've reached the middle of the arena. Once you've done this, you will bypass the pillar of ice and you only want to move down before the ice hits you or the next mechanic is about to start. Then make your way down and then make your way to the right back to the favourite spot. If you've done this correctly, 9 times out of 10 you won't get hit by any of the pillars and you can just avoid the whole mechanic altogether. You won't need a shield or anything, you just want to carry on with the fight once you go back to the favourite spot. The next mechanic the Glacier is performing is the Exposed Core. The Glacier will drop both of its arms either side and you just want to attack whichever benefits you more. So if you're doing mage, you want to attack the one on the right. If you're doing melee, you want to attack the one on the left. Range, it doesn't really matter, then just focus your attacks back on the Glacier itself. The next mechanic the Glacier is performing is the minion one. So what you want to do is head either side of the minions, then use AoE abilities. I'm using Tsunami because I'm using mage, then click on each one individually until they're dead. Once all the minions are dead, you just want to head back to your favourite spot, then you just want to click on the boss again and then right click the cores. I like to right click them because if I don't I sometimes misclick, so yeah, right click them and then focus back on the boss, wait for the next mechanic. The next attack Glacier is performing is the Flurry one. You'll know this because text will appear in the middle of the screen and creeping ice will appear on both sides. Now all you want to do for this one is use your Sunshine ultimate or your Death Swiftness ultimate, get that ready and then focus on Glacier's arms. Now if the Glacier does a swooping arm attack, you want to deflect from melee. If the Glacier does an arm attack in the air, you want to deflect from mage, and if it does an arm attack in the air and it's green, deflect from range. The next mechanic the Glacier is performing is going to be Frost Cannon because the icicles in the middle have reached the middle and not gone past me. Now as long as you stay in the favourite spot, the creeping ice won't be able to touch you. You just want to make sure you deflect from mage, and then just as the Glacier is turning it into a cannon, you want to use Devotion, and straight after use Freedom, and you'll be totally fine for this mechanic. The next mechanic, the icicles are appearing again and they've gone past you, so it's not going to be a frost cannon, it's going to be an pillars of ice. So you just want to click on the corner again just as the icicles have almost hit you, one stump away. Make your way into the corner, then you want to prepare yourself for that pillar. Once it's moved, make your way into the next corner, make your way left just as you reach the corner, click the end of the arena and surge when you get to the middle, and then only move down once the pillars have almost hit you or the next mechanic is about to start. Now usually you would go back to your favourite spot, but in this case you can't because the creeping ice is appearing from the right hand side first. Now this is going to be a frost cannon attack, so what you want to do is make your way to the black spot or somewhere near the black spot to the left and then prepare yourself. Now if you notice your ability bar, your devotion is still on cooldown, so you're going to have to do your second backup. So what you want to do is use debilitation, and then once that's clicked, use the power bust of vitality, and then after you've clicked that, use your freedom, and you will take damage, but you will only take half the amount of damage and you'll still be fine as long as your health is high. Once the glacier is defeated, you just want to turn off your prayers and then make your way to the portal, and there's going to be a couple of options for you. So on the left hand side there will be claim loot, so any enrage will go back to 0 regardless of what you are, and you'll claim the loot and you will start again. On the right hand side you can continue for better rewards, but the enrage will go up by a certain amount, and you just want to leave and then you want to prepare yourself and then you want to go into your next boss fight. Now depending on how long it takes to kill the boss, you might want to top up your overloads and stuff like that, but make sure you have enough prayer before you go in and enough health, and then turn on your prayers again and then you're ready for the next fight. Once you've headed into the arena, you just want to go to the favourite spot and then get ready for the boss to spawn, and then get ready for the first mechanic to happen. Now if ice appears from both sides, it's either going to be the frost cannon or the exposed core. Now if it's going to be the exposed core, he will fall straight away. If it's going to be the frost cannon, it will delay like maybe a couple of seconds, and then you will know it's going to be a frost cannon. Once the arms drop to the floor, you just want to focus on whichever arm you can get more DPS in. Then once the arm is destroyed, you want to focus back on the glacier itself and get ready for the next mechanic. Now the creeping ice is appearing from the left hand side, you just want to focus on those little icicles in the middle. Now if the icicles go past you, it's going to be the pillars of ice. If the icicles just hit where you are, it's going to be the frost cannon. Now same thing again, you just want to make your way into the corner, then make your way into the next corner just as the pillar moves, then make your way to the left, then a left again when the creeping ice has shattered, and then you want to surge just as you hit the middle to avoid the third pillar of ice. Make your way down, and then to the right hand side back to your favourite spot. The next mechanic is Flurry. Now we know this because just as the last mechanic was finishing, text appeared on the screen and ice appeared from either side of the arena. The first Flurry attack 9 times out of 10 is mage, so you don't have to fully concentrate if you are deflecting mage anyway until you reposition yourself, then you focus on the arms and then prayer switch accordingly. The next mechanic is pushing you to the left. Now the only time creeping ice appears from the right hand side first is when a frost cannon is appearing, so you just want to get ready for the frost cannon. You want to make sure you have deflect mage on, then use devotion, then use freedom, and you will be fine. The next mechanic is the minions. Now you know this because the glacier puts his arms into the air and shields himself from any damage. So you just want to make your way either side of the minions, then use your AoE, so I'm using Tsunami to deal with most of them straight away. Then focus on the rest you haven't killed, go back to your favourite spot, focus on the glacier and then right click the cores. Now this is a good example of when Glacier uses 2 mechanics in a row. So this time Glacier has used 2 minions in a row, and I won't be able to use Tsunami because I've just used it for the last mechanic. So what I want to do is just focus on each one individually and then drop their health down until they are all dead. Make your way back into the favourite spot, click on the Glacier and then right click those cores to deal some extra damage. The next attack, the creeping ice is appearing from the left hand side. The icicles in the middle have gone past you, so you know it's not a frost cannon and it's pillars of ice. So again, make your way into the corner just as the creeping ice almost hits you. Once you've made your way into the corner, make your way into the next as the pillar moves, then make your way to the left, press left again just as the creeping ice disappears, surge in the middle to bypass the other pillar, make your way down just before the pillar hits you or the creeping ice appears. Now we can't make our way back to the favourite spot because the creeping ice has appeared from the right hand side first, but we also know that the cannon is about to happen because the ice only appears from the right hand side when the cannon is happening, and we didn't have to deal with it at that time because we killed the boss before it happened. Make your way to the portal, have a choice of starting again or carrying on, make your way back to the lobby area and prepare yourself for the next fight. Now I'm just going to show you the fight just one more time just to explain the prayer switches. You can skip this little bit of the video if you like and then go to the last bit where I will be explaining the bloistered glaciers at 250 enrage, but if not, just stick around and I will just show you the fight one more time and show you what I mean by prayer switching. Now you only want to deflect mage when Glacier is performing an attack, and then in between the attacks you want to soul split to gain any health back. Now Deflecting Mage is much stronger against its attacks than Soul Split. You'll get to know this the higher enrages you do, because if you Soul Split one of its attacks, then you will be dealt far more damage than if you Deflect Mage. Now this is a really good habit to get into. Even at lower enrages you can just get into the habit of prayer switching every time Glacier doesn't attack you, and this will just sustain your health much longer throughout the fight. Just means that you use less food, and it's just always nice that I have more health anyway for just peace of mind. Now this is only really effective if you keybind your keys to your keyboard for your revolution bar, so you don't have to click the prayers manually. You can just click a key on your keyboard and it will switch it for you. So now I'm just going to show you the Bloisted minions. Now this only happens when you fight Glacier at 250 enrage and higher. So if you're going to just do 0 to 250, they won't appear, so you don't need to worry. But if you're going to do much higher enrages in the future, it's better to learn it now so you have a better understanding on what you're getting into. So I'm just going to show you the first bit of the fight, only because the Glacier performs a minion mechanic as its first attack, and if this happens the Bloisted minion doesn't appear, so it only appears further on in the fight, just never as the first mechanic. So this you just want to use your Tsunami or anything just to get rid of them, and then carry on with the boss fight like normal. So a little bit later on in the fight, the Glacier does perform the minion mechanic. So what the Glacier will do is just shoot his arms up like normal, but this time a fifth one will appear. It will always be close to you, so what you want to do is just head kind of to the side of the other minions and then use your Tsunami to try to get as many of them as possible. I like to focus on the Glacier, the Bloisted one, directly because it has the most health, so any attacks that ricochet off the Glacier and hits the other ones, and it's just extra damage. And then once the main one is defeated, focus on the other 4 or whatever's left, go back to your spot, and then it's just like normal, click the Glacier and then click the cores. Now sometimes after the minion attack there will be a next mechanic that prevents you from using the cores to its full effect, like a exposed core mechanic or another minion mechanic. So what you want to do is just wait until that one's finished, and then when you have an opening, use whatever remaining cores are on the arena floor and then do the 2500 damage. So I'm just going to show you one more time. The Glacier decided to do this mechanic 3 times during this fight. So again, it will shoot his arms into the air, and then the 5th one will appear near you. You just want to circle around the other minions so they all group together. Use your Tsunami or get it ready. If you can't, then just cycle through them individually and then get their healths down, and then go back to the favourite spot and then focus back on the Glacier itself and then click the cores after. Okay, so that kind of wraps up everything to do with hard mode Glacier, at least up to 500 enrage anyway. Thank you guys for watching. Any tips and stuff that I have left out I will leave in the description so you can give that a read. Any queries you have you can just leave in the comments and I will try my best to answer them for you. Yeah, don't forget to sub and like and all that, and I will see you in the next one.